Hello and welcome to the MindBody Learning Zone monthly chat. This month we're going to be talking about anxiety, what it is and what are the underlying causes, how to ride the wave of anxiety, plus a tapping meditation to help you calm your nervous system. So I'm Amanda Collins and I'm a trauma and internal family system wellbeing coach. And I use energy psychology techniques to help my clients along their personal recovery journey from chronic fatigue, chronic pain, fibromyalgia, and other persistent symptoms, including anxiety. My aim is to empower my clients to understand their self on a deeper level and to help them bring joy back into their life. I would like to introduce Carole, my co-host and co-founder at the MindBody Learning Zone. So Carole, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, Amanda. Hello, everybody. I hope you're doing well today. So as Amanda has so nicely introduced me, my name's Carole. I'm a psychotherapist, trained practitioner, and I work with people with long-term chronic pain of unexplained origin. So you've had all the tests, nothing's come back as being found, and this is about looking at the emotional causes behind the physical effects of your chronic long-term pain.
So shall we get started on our slides? So let's share our screen.
So the big question of the day is, what is anxiety? We hear so much, don't we, these days in the news, with our friends, our colleagues, our children, that we're all anxious. And really, anxiety is just a feeling of unease. It's a bit like a worry or a fear. Sometimes it's mild, but sometimes it can be so severe that it affects all aspects of your life. The thing is, and it's quite normal, we all feel anxious from time to time, and it usually passes once the situation is over. So there are lots of common symptoms that we experience. It can make our heart race when we're anxious. We might also feel sweaty or shaky, that sort of breathing from the top of the chest, and we can get quite short of breath. We also have behavioural symptoms such as becoming overly careful. We're very cautious, and we also don't really want to go into situations where we feel anxious. And anxiety is really a fear of our unknown future. Some other signs of anxiety may also include feeling tired, on edge, restless or irritable. We often don't sleep well, which is another sign of anxiety because we've got things on our mind and they just keeps going round and round. We can get a feeling of a sense of dread. I don't want to do this. And just for an example, if you haven't driven your car for a long time, you get into your car, you feel anxious, you feel quite nervy, quite jumpy about it. We're not able to concentrate and make decisions. We feel sick, dizzy, sweaty, short of breath. There's lots of symptoms here that you can see about anxiety. So what I suggest you do is you have a look on the replay and you can look through this and have a look and think, yes, that applies to me. No, that doesn't apply to me. And perhaps even journal about some of those situations where you find these signs of anxiety of coming up for you. So when does anxiety start to become a problem? When does it really start to impact on us and what we do in life, or we perhaps feel anxious about doing in life, perhaps even going to work, or as I said, driving the car? So it's really when these worries become out of proportion with what we might consider a normal, harmless situation, things that we do in the everyday, like going to the supermarket or going to work or going into a social situation. So what happens, it starts to become a problem when it starts to feel more intense and overwhelming and interferes with those things that we might do on a daily basis, normally without worrying about them, normally without even thinking about them, we would just go into them. But when they become much more intense, then it definitely becomes more of a problem and we tip into anxiety.
So what causes anxiety? Anxiety affects everybody differently, and it can be brought on by different situations or experiences. And it's our body's natural reaction to a perceived danger. It focuses our attention and it gives us a rush of adrenaline to react. And this is sometimes called the fight, flight, or freeze response. So let me give you an example of what a stress response is and what anxiety is. So just imagine you're walking down the road, chatting deeply in a conversation with your friend, and you go to cross the road and you don't see a bus coming towards you. And your body is like, oh, it sees the bus and it goes into that stress response. And it gives us a shot of adrenaline and cortisol. And it sort of like helps us do the flight, move out the way so we can move away from that bus and keep ourselves safe. Now, that is a stress response. That isn't anxiety. Anxiety would be that you worry about something happening in the future. Or replaying something that's already happened in the past. So in this example, you could be worrying about getting hit by the bus if you go out with your friend again, and that might be causing anxiety. Or you could be replaying that moment where you saw that bus coming towards you. Now, in that moment, when your stress response reacted, it was keeping you safe. It was very useful. Now, anxiety is a normal reaction. Yeah. And it's also keeping us safe. It reminds us maybe not to be chatting with our friends so intently when we need to cross the road. However, when anxiety or worry stops us from being in the now, in that present moment, and you're always thinking about what could have happened in the past or what could happen in the future, then anxiety becomes unhelpful and we get stuck in that anxiety loop. What do you think about that, Carole?
I think I'd like to just add one more little thing here, that anxiety is not a condition. We are being told all the time it's a condition. It's not actually a condition, it's an emotion. And if we can separate that out and know that our emotions pass through us, then it doesn't become this much bigger thing that we're anxious about, because we know it will pass with the right interventions. And we're going to come to some tips later on in this recording.
Yes, and the next slide's I'm going to share, what is actually happening in the brain when we get anxiety. So nice intro. So what happens in the brain? Now, there's a deep connection between the relationship between anxiety and trauma. As we've already said, the body is going through a normal neurological and neurobiological response to trauma. And we see that anxiety is part of that. In fact, the normal neurobiological response always starts with anxiety. And there is this startled response that we have where the body goes into this little bit of sympathetic state, which is anxiety. And it's like there might be a danger here or a potential threat. I don't know yet. Let me become hypervigilant. Let me become hyper aware. My eyes are going to dilate more so I can take in all of my environment. And there's even changes that happen in the inner ear that expand too, so that it can take in all of the noises around you. So the brain, especially the amygdala, can assess the danger. Now, the amygdala is our smoke detector. It's always looking for danger. And it needs to make a very fast decision to help to keep us alive and help us survive of, is this a true danger? So it looks to see if anything like this has happened before. And so it looks into our memories. So our memories aren't just stored in one part of the brain, but actually their different types are stored across different interconnected brain regions that you can see here on our diagram. So when we are in a state of anxiety, it actually makes us less resourceful, not more resourceful, as it shuts down the thinking part of our brain, that prefrontal cortex, the part where we do our thinking, our conscious thinking. And also, anxiety uses up a lot of our energy in our body. And if we can learn to calm down our nervous system, then we are freeing up a lot of our energy and resources. So that actually allows us to deal with the challenges and difficulties that we might be facing in our lives.
So what you're saying, Amanda, is that our thoughts really do become things based on our perceptions of the world as well. Yeah.
Exactly.
Etc. Yeah.
That's it. You know, we have that, we see something, we have that thought, it's taken in, the amygdala is that smoke alarm.
Yeah.
What's happening here? Red alert, looking around. And then that process in the brain is like, has this happened before? How do I deal with it? And then that's where that behavior and actions then start coming down the line.
Okay, thank you. If we go with the premise that our thoughts really do become things based on our understanding and our experience of our worlds, we can see how things like our upbringing, past traumas that we may have had perhaps in our childhood, in perhaps those adverse childhood experiences, our personality traits come in, learned behaviors come in, our beliefs all come in. And it also, that goes back to our ancestral traumas. Now, what do I mean by that? We learn what we see. We see what our parents do. Our parents have done exactly the same. So they have picked up potential traumas from their parents or grandparents, just as we do. And we manage to pass this behavior and beliefs down through the generations. But the good thing is that we can change this once we become aware of it.
Thank you, Carole. I just wanted to talk a little bit more about ancestral trauma, because it's one of my passions, really, because I'm so much into my genealogy and ancestral trauma and healing. So, as you said, trauma from our ancestors can be passed down the generations to us. So an example also would be, it's not the only example, but a good one, is if my grandmother was actually in the war and she experienced trauma and stress and anxiety, then that would actually affect her biology and physiology in every single cell in her body, including her ovaries and her eggs. And that stress would be in her eggs. Now, my mum would be one of those eggs that are in there. And then my mum actually ends up producing me. So my physiology is actually directly affected by my grandmother's physiological changes that she had during the war and other stressful events. And what's interesting in the work that I do is that sometimes I can find through muscle testing that certain emotions we're holding on to actually don't belong to us. They can belong to our ancestors, and we can then actually give those back to them as part of the family constellation therapy I do. And I do that within the matrix re-imprinting. Very powerful to heal ancestral trauma and imbalances in the family system. So, as you know, that's one of my passions that I love doing. Now, we all got parts of us that get anxious. Sometimes we don't know why we have these anxious parts that is overwhelming us or keeping us up at night. But this part stops us focusing on other things in our life that we don't want to focus on. Maybe that's past traumas or worries that we're trying to hide away and, forget about. So really, we need to get to know this part of us, find out its story. What are its fears and worries? Befriend that part, because like I've said before, we are made up of parts. We have ourself, which is our unburdened, sort of like healed part of us, our essence. And then we're made up of all these different parts. So often this part of us that's feeling anxious could actually be protecting a hurt part of us and trying to keep us safe. So it's important that we explore that a little bit more. And that's the work that me and Carole do with our clients, where we delve a little bit deeper into that and we find out those parts. So how can I reduce my anxiety? Well, first of all, we recognize that some anxiety is normal. And we've already said that. That's part of the stress response that we have. It is a normal process to have that anxiety. We explore what is making us feel anxious with therapeutic journaling. Carole's already mentioned that list of symptoms there. We can use therapeutic journaling there, but we can also write down, why am I feeling anxious, or which part of me is feeling anxious, and just write down your thoughts on that and explore your beliefs. Do you feel the world is an unsafe place? Do you feel that your home is an unsafe place? Do you feel unsafe in your own body? Again, we need to explore those beliefs in a little bit more detail. And reframing. Remember the slide before when I said we are made up of many parts? So it's a part of me that's feeling anxious, not the whole part. And even when we can name that there is just a part of me that's feeling anxious, it gives us that little bit of space, because there's also another part of me that's not feeling anxious. So we can hold on to that part a little bit more. It's important that we acknowledge our thoughts in a non-judgmental way. And it's okay to not feel okay. We are very good at putting on this brave face with everything. So actually, it's okay to say, actually, today I'm not feeling okay, or I'm feeling a bit anxious or a bit sad, or whatever the emotion is. It's okay to feel not okay. Explore the root causes with somebody you trust or a practitioner. Again, me and Carole have sort of like touched on how we go a little bit deeper with our clients. And things that you can do yourself: practice mindfulness, guided meditation. Me and Carole will talk a little bit more about that in a moment. Tapping, and I'll be doing a little bit of tapping with you in a moment. An action plan card. Me and Carole will talk a little bit more about that and what could go on that. And also breathing exercises to help calm your nervous system. It's important that when anxiety comes up, we sit with that and then let that go. But Carole's going to talk us through riding the wave in a moment and explain that more in a little bit more detail. So Carole, we were going to talk a little bit more in depth about the guided meditation and why we think that guided meditation is better rather than just sitting in silence with your thoughts. So maybe you could expand a little bit more on that.
So the reason that we suggest guided meditation is because, as we know, when we're anxious, our front thinking brain shuts down. So actually, we're probably better having some instruction. Although our thoughts might move away from the instruction, we can be consciously bringing them back, which again will slow down our breathing. We'll take a deep breath. It will send a message to our body and our brain that we're safe. So it's a way of bringing a sense of safety back into our sense of self.
Yeah, and I agree. And also, I think that when we're in this anxious state, it's those thoughts that are running around our head. So actually, for somebody saying, oh, meditate, sit there, empty your mind, you know, and all you've got is these thoughts racing around your head, it's just not going to happen, is it? So, you know, I know you're going to talk a bit more about like embodiment, taking us into the body. And I think that's important, that we need to come out of the mind. Yeah. Out of our head, should I say, you know, into the body. And also I wanted to talk a little bit more on the action plan cards, because I do this quite a lot with my clients. Like what we've said, that when you're in an anxious state, your prefrontal cortex, your thinking part of your brain shuts down. So you just literally do not know what to do. And I think having their little card, you know, maybe keep that somewhere safe or have a few of them around, where you can write down the things that have helped you in the past and do help you. Well, like what you said, giving you instructions because you can't think at this moment. So I know for my clients, it can be things like, which we'll do in a minute, it's the tapping. That can help bring that anxiety down, the breathing. What other things have you found help your clients?
So there's the grounding, and you had that on the slide, the hear, see, feel, smell.
Yeah, so I like this. So it's using all of your, I say five, using all of your five senses, isn't it? So it's like 5 things that you can see. And this is how I do it, you know, 4 things that you can feel, you know, 3 things that you can hear, 2 things that you can smell, maybe, or remembering something that you can smell. Because often if I say to you orange or lavender, you can like, oh yeah, I can smell, or lemon, I can smell that, you know. and, you know, something that you can taste. So again, that's bringing our senses and bringing us back into the body, isn't it?
So now I want to talk about riding the wave, as I call it. And as I said, you know, our emotions come and they go. Now, our emotions last 90 seconds. There's been lots of studies done about it, but I know, and I'm sure like me, when you're in an emotion, it feels like an eternity. So by using some of those techniques we've talked about before, we've also got something, as I said, called riding the wave. And the first thing to do is pause, just to catch yourself and acknowledge where you are. My thoughts have run away with me. I'm safe. I'm here. I'm in the now. And then notice the breathing, because very often we just breathe very shallowly from the chest. And I quite often find if I just put my hand on the chest, and yes, I do suffer from anxiety too. And I'll let you into a little secret. Amanda and I did some breathing before we did this video. So we stopped, we paused, we started to breathe a bit more deeply. We acknowledged what was going on, and we felt also where it was in the body. The tension in our shoulders, for example, our jaws were tight. So we did some widening of our jaws to kind of ease the symptom there. We rolled our shoulders to let them drop. And with the breathing as well, that really gives you a sense that, yes, I'm okay. And you can become the curious observer, because different things will trigger off anxious thoughts, anxious feelings. Just note when it happens. And this is where the journaling comes in, because you can kind of like keep a record of it. But the really good thing is you can go back to that and work your way through it. Say, well, what might have happened if I did this instead? So that next time you start to feel that kind of tummy going, or a bit of a tightening of your muscles, or you feel like your throat's tightened up a bit, or you just feel a bit anxious, you know, you can feel it, can't you, that contraction? Then just become the curious observer and watch what's happening in your body. Can you name the sensation or feeling? Sometimes you can feel that, as I said, contraction in the body. You can feel yourself go heavy. You can feel yourself, your tummy kind of goes, your legs kind of feel heavy, your mouth drops. And a very quick way to get yourself out of anxiety is to actually smile, strangely enough, because it sends a different message. Keep yourself in the here and now, because as we know, anxiety creates that what I call flight of fancy. We are gone into the future. You know, everything's awful, everything's terrible, nothing's ever going to be right, you know, I'm no good, I'm useless, and all the rest of it. That we, you know, all those thoughts that go through. We are our own worst judge. We really are. The inner critic, you know, really needs to be brought back under control. And as Amanda said, that's a part of ourselves that you can work with and work on with a practitioner. So keep things very firmly in the here and now. Notice where you're sitting, how you're holding yourself, your feet on the ground, how you're breathing. Even, you know, the space around you. You may need to just get a sense of self again by just holding yourself even. You know, that will give you a boundary. So you'll feel a bit more closed, a bit more supported, a bit more held, a bit more nurtured. Building this resource, quite often, when we're in that state, we find it really difficult to build a resource of a sense of safety in our body. So instead of that, we think of a place that's familiar to us, somewhere we have fond memories of, we can visualize that, perhaps a person as well. You know, for me, it's my grandmother. I can imagine sitting around in her kitchen where she's cooking her dinner, you know, having a chat to her. That's, you know, my person. And the memories can be, for me, it's a beach that I have as well, which gives me a really good positive feeling. So there's lots of things you can do to build kind of resources in place. Amanda.
That's lovely. Thank you, Carole. I was just thinking when you were saying about holding yourself, and I remember sort of like reading, and it's like that sense of knowing where your boundary is is so important. So you were sort of like saying hold yourself or stroking yourself, and some people even do like the tapping on them, and it's like, well, this is me, this is my body, this is who I am, isn't it? And bringing yourself back, you know, to know where you begin and where you end, really, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Bringing you back into that body. So that's lovely. Thank you, Carole. Using EFT tapping. Now, this is one of my favorite self-help techniques that I use myself and also with my clients. So tapping helps you set aside time to acknowledge your worries rather than trying to bury them, as ignoring them only makes them worse. And we've already said that, you know, we can't ignore these past traumas and memories and thoughts that we have. We need to bring them up to the surface and release them. So as you tap on the acupressure points, you are saying the things that are worrying you. So a simple way to use tapping is just to ask yourself these questions. What bodily sensations come up? What am I feeling? So it might be, I feel as if, you know, I have a tightness in my chest, or I have a churning in my stomach. What am I thinking right now? So we can continue tapping through these points until the intensity of your anxiety actually starts to come down. And then you can change to the more positive statements. And we're going to do a tapping meditation together in a moment. So if you're new to tapping, what I would say is you can look on my YouTube channel, Restoring Balance Wellness Clinic, and there's an intro to tapping on there. So that also, you can watch that again. Now I'm going to take you through a tapping meditation. This tapping meditation is all around having anxiety about your anxiety. And I know from working with clients, this is very common. Tapping has been shown in research to interrupt the stress response pathway to the amygdala, so therefore not setting off our internal smoke alarm system. I'm going to show you very quickly how to tap, and then we can do a few rounds of tapping together. We tap on the end points of the meridians that run down either side of our body. And we tap with a similar pressure as if we were tapping our fingers on a table at a nice sort of like steady rhythm, a bit like a waltz rhythm, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. We start by tapping on the side of the hand, which is called the karate chop point. And you can use whichever hand feels comfortable for you. You can go back and forth, or you can just stay in one place. And this is where you say your setup phrase 3 times. We then go through the points on the body. The first one is the eyebrow point, and that's on the inside of the eyebrow, right where the hair ends and meets the nose. And we can use 2 fingers of one hand or the other hand, or do both hands. You can tap gently with your eyes opened or closed. And I would say if you find that you get too emotional at any point, keep on tapping through the points, but with your eyes open. Now we move to the sides of the eye. Now it's not the temple back here. It's right next to the eye on the bone. Again, one side or both sides. Next, we move underneath the eye in line with the pupil. Then underneath the nose. We then move underneath the mouth, and it's just above the chin, below the lip, where that little crease is. Next, we move to the collarbone. And if you feel for the 2 little bones and just go below, you can use all 10 fingers of both hands or one hand, whatever is comfortable. Next, we move to the points underneath the arm. And it's right underneath the armpit, about a palm's width below the armpit or on the bra strap line. The last point we use is the crown of the head. So now you know the points, let's get started and tune in and focus on your anxiety. If it is safe to do so, just close your eyes and just breathe. Big breath in and out. Just tune into this idea of anxiety. Notice how your body feels. Are you holding on to any anxiety in your body? Are you thinking any anxious thoughts? Maybe think about how you do feel when you have anxiety. We are looking to bring up your feelings, your sensations, so we can move through them. We want to connect here rather than burying it in an unhealthy way. So go ahead, just feel that in your body and give it a number on a scale to 0 to 10. 0 being no sensation of anxiety at all, or 10, the worst it's ever been. Just make a mental note of the number, or you can write it down. And when you're ready, just gently open your eyes again. We will start with some tapping on the side of the hand. So repeat after me, either in your mind or out loud. Even though I have this anxiety for so long, and I'm not sure how to get rid of these feelings, I love and accept myself. Still on the side of the hand, even though I'm anxious about my anxiety, I choose to let it go now. And I love and accept myself. One more time on the side of the hand. Even though I have this old pattern of anxiety, I'm open to changing the way I feel. And I love and accept myself. Now we tap through the points. Eyebrow. This anxiety I have felt for so long is part of who I am. Side of the eye. All this anxiety. Under the eye. What if my body felt safe? Under the nose. What if my body could relax? Mouth. What if I release this anxiety? Collarbone. How would I feel? Under the arm. Who would I be without this anxiety? Top of the head. All this anxiety. Back to the eyebrow. It is safe to feel it. Side of the eye. And it's safe to let it go. Under the eye. What if my body felt safe? Under the nose. What if my body could relax? Under the mouth. What if I could release this anxiety? Collarbone. And become anxiety free. Just stay on the collarbone point for the moment and just tune in to how that all feels and the possibility of letting it go. And think, who would I be without this anxiety? Does it feel safe to let it go when I've had it for so long? I don't know who I would be without it. How can I operate in the world? We're just beginning to explore letting it go. How would you breathe if you were free of anxiety? What decisions would you make in your life? Is it safe to make these decisions? Begin to imagine yourself free of anxiety and open to letting go of your anxiety. Now tap under the arm. What if I was to let this anxiety go? What if I felt safe, grounded and strong in my body? Top of the head. Strong, grounded and safe. Let's just do one last round. Back to the eye. It is safe to release all this anxiety. Side of the eye. It is safe to release it now. Under the eye. From every cell in my body. Under the nose. Reprogramming my mind. Under the mouth. To be calm and peaceful. Collarbone. To be grounded and safe. Under the arm. Letting go. Top of the head. Letting go right now. You can gently stop tapping. Just put your hands on your chest. Take a deep breath in. And let it go. And just check in on the intensity of the anxiety you were feeling before. On the 0 to 10 scale. And make a note of that in your mind or write it down. Any shift or 0 means you are heading in the right direction. If the intensity is higher, then maybe you'd like to repeat the tapping again and including the thoughts and feelings that come up for you when you were thinking about your anxiety. You can change some of the words when you tap, along with, just do the tapping meditation again and again until the number comes down. If your number went up, then this means that you've just opened a door to some hidden emotions or memories, and that's good. So just keep on tapping until the new emotions subside. By looking at what is causing your anxiety and having more awareness of what is happening, the less power it has over you. Carole and I both delve deeper into this with our clients, but looking at their beliefs, past unresolved traumas, even ancestral trauma. So how did you feel after doing that tapping, Carole?
As always, a lot calmer, a lot less. I can feel my whole body kind of like slumping almost.
Yes. Yeah, I love it. I really do. And the important thing I think to remember, if we've only got 2 minutes, we can do 2 minutes of tapping. Yeah. If we've got 15 minutes, we can do 15 minutes of tapping, and I think that's nice. We don't always have to think, well, I haven't got half an hour to do tapping. Any tapping can help bring us that anxiety or any of those emotions down as well. So, yeah.
And I can remember the first time I kind of was introduced to tapping. And the reason I was introduced to tapping was because I was nervous about giving a presentation at work. And all I did was, while I was doing it, was tapping the side of my head. And, I couldn't fit. I was not focused on the anxiety or I'm going to get this wrong or anything like that. It was just such a soothing, calming way. And it kind of slowed my speech down and everything. It was just really nice thing to do.
I think that's a lovely thing. I mean, the tapping points that I've just shown now are sort of like the very basic tapping points. There's extra tapping points, but a couple of extra ones that I love as well, like what you said, you could tap on the karate chop point, and we could do that underneath the desk or whatever. Nobody's noticing I'm tapping, but you're not noticing what I'm doing. Another nice one that you can do like under the desk or where people don't see very much is by tapping on the sides of the fingers. And that one's quite a nice one to do. So, you can just do that and be tapping, and so that's nice that, you don't have to think, oh, they're going to think I'm silly. I'm going to stand here and it's like, even though, and I'm tapping away, we can do that in a very subtle way. And there's another one I will say, this is the trauma point and it's called the gamut point, but it's also the thyroid point as well on the meridian. And if we put all of our fingers in between the bones, now this one is a nice one to do because apparently I've been told it sort of like covers a lot of the meridian systems in that one. So again, that's another nice one that people can just add in. So yeah, if you want to learn more, then obviously you can work with me and Carole because we teach you all of these extra points as well. So yeah, great resource. And
I will just say I've taught it to my grandchildren as well. It's in school. And that's the brilliant thing. There's lots of studies about this as well that support evidence. NHS use it, nice guidelines. recommend it. I mean, it's just fabulous to think that this is such an easy, quick,
Exactly. There's over 300 actually published papers now on research of EFT. And even when they put people into functional MRI scans and show which parts of the brain, light up before tapping, and then those bits don't get targeted after tapping. So brilliant. We could do a whole, I could do a whole new webinar just on the research, which I find absolutely fascinating. But please use it, and you've got it now in this recording, so go back, rewatch it as many times as you need to. So brilliant.
Almost at the end now of our presentation, so if you would like to find out more about what we've talked about, or you feel you need some more support, Amanda and I are here. We're always happy to speak to people and answer questions. We do a free 30-minute discovery call, so please do feel free to contact us. And just remember that if you're concerned about anything in what we've spoken about today, just check with your GP or healthcare provider to make sure that it's not anything more than anxiety.
Thank you, Carole. And here's our information. As Carole said, if you'd like to book a discovery call with us, then just look us up on our websites and all the information is there. So we look forward to seeing you next month.
Bye.
Bye for now.